Good morning. Welcome to a Saturday morning, a rainy Saturday morning edition of Morning Scone. Hope you had a great week and enjoyed the game last night, although there wasn't much, quite honestly, to enjoy. LSU loses to Texas A&M last night, 9-2 in Game 2 of their series on Friday night in College Station. So what I want to do is maybe talk a second about the game, big picture, conference standings, all that stuff, what the implications of last night's loss mean, and then a question that I've gotten a ton on social media since the game ended, which is what do you do with Caleb Gilbert? So I'll get to that as well. So let me start with the game. Honestly, when it's a 9-2 and it went the way it did, where Caleb Gilbert doesn't make it out of the first inning and you're down 5-0 after one inning, there's not a whole lot to say. I mean, I can try to pluck out a few positives and things like to have looked for. One is in the top of the first inning, LSU had runners on second and third with one out and couldn't get the run home or a run home. You went line out to first, strike out, and that was your 4 or 5 hole hitters with Bo Jordan and Daniel Cabrera. So that's really, really disappointing that you had a chance after winning on Thursday night to go take a lead in the top of the first, and instead they flipped it around on you. They got out of a sticky situation, and then they opened the game against Gilbert, single, single, single. You're down, and then it just never let up. So you wonder, might it have been differently had they been able to push a run across in the first? Maybe, maybe not. But whatever it is, it's what it is at this point. You lost 9-2. So if you want positives, how about Cam Sanders? Second strong outing in a row. He pitched in relief the other day, was perfect, and then in the midweek game, and then he comes in the first with 2 outs after Gilbert goes 2/3 of an inning, and Cam Sanders gives you 3 2/3. He allowed 3 runs on just one hit. He had a couple of walks, a couple of strikeouts, but he pitched really well until the fourth. So where I guess you're trying to find a role for those guys, and he came in a situation similar to what Todd Peterson did in Vanderbilt, where you needed someone to give you long relief, and he did it, and that was good to see. And then they just got through it with Kodros. I was a little surprised they brought in Peterson, but Peterson gave you 2 1/3, 4 hits and a run. He was pretty good. But in that situation, you just need to get through the ball game. So I understand kind of what Paul Maneri was doing was, keep some of your bigger bullets in the gun still, understanding that in today's game you'll have Mikhail Hilliard, who you hope extends. But after that, you've got Beck. If you need Beck to extend, he can because he hasn't pitched yet this weekend. You could certainly bring Devin Fontenot back, and you still have Austin Bain. If Nick Bush is on the shelf for the weekend, those three plus Hilliard should be able to get you through today's game. So you should be okay. Offensively, there's just not a lot to talk about. I mean, 2 runs on 6 hits, just, you know, it's really disappointing. I mean, Cabrera hit the 2-run homer off a lefty. If there's one big confounding issue, it's that this team continues to struggle against lefties, and we talked about that yesterday on Morning Scone, was the fact that John Doxakis from A&M was another lefty with an ERA around 2, and that's kind of what had been giving LSU trouble, and it did again last night. So Doxakis went 8 innings, allowed 2 runs on 6 hits. The only runs, of course, was the 2-run homer from Cabrera. So you tip your cap to that guy, and LSU's got to figure out a way to hit lefties because they're going to face many more good ones heretofore. So big picture, LSU now just a game above 500 in the conference, and that's why the series was so big. So LSU is at 6-5, and A&M is at 4-7. So if you're LSU, you win the series, you have a chance to bury A&M in the standing. So you win this game today, you move to 7-5, and meanwhile A&M is at 5-7, having lost a home series. You flip that around. If you lose today, LSU, you're at 500 at 6-6, and A&M just a game off the pace. So it's big for that reason. What happens in today's game, obviously. And you got Hilliard on the mound, who's got the best ERA in the SEC. So let's see what the freshman can do going on the road in this situation. So the other question that people had asked, and I did a Facebook Live on this last night because I'd started getting a whole bunch of questions on Twitter about this after the game. And admittedly, it's a reactionary type thing that fans sometimes do, which I guess I sort of understand. But in yesterday's show, I mentioned that one of the big problems that baseball fans will have sometimes here is baseball fans will treat baseball results like football results. And you just can't do that because baseball is a game where you need a larger sample. In football, college football particularly, you lose one game. I mean, it's a referendum on your whole season. It's just not the same in baseball. That's why they play a 3 game series every weekend. And many of you, I'm certain, I'm preaching to the choir here. But so just like you shouldn't get too high with the win on Thursday, although it was a really good win, you shouldn't get too low with the loss yesterday and become reactionary. So you could ask about Caleb Gilbert, and the question was, should Caleb Gilbert move to the bullpen? And my answer is absolutely not. It's certainly not at this point. Remember your road series at Vanderbilt, the only game you won was with Caleb Gilbert on the mound. And he's had some trouble early in the season. He's righted the ship. He's not been nearly as dominant as many had hoped or thought he would, but he's been a very good number 2 starter for LSU up to this point. And what's more is I really like keeping Hilliard in the Sunday role or the game 3 role. So I'd ask it to you this way: if you moved Gilbert out, do you have a better option for Saturday? Because if you move Hilliard to game 2, then my guess is you'd move AJ Labus to game 3. And now I think what you've done is you've weakened you've weakened 2 spots you've upset the apple cart on 2 spots. You've moved Hilliard from his game 3 where you have an advantage every weekend to game 2 where he's going to be head up against a better arm. And then you moved Labus, who's never pitched in the weekend as a starter, into that Sunday role or that game 3 role. And you've given up the advantage that you had where Hilliard has been so dominant. So I still like very much going into a weekend series thinking, okay, if Hess and Gilbert can split the first 2 games, which LSU's done this weekend, I can give the ball to Hilliard on game 3 and feel really good about my chance to win the series. And we've been over the numbers so many times, right? If in over 10 weekends, if you go 2 out of 3, you're 20-10, and 20-10 in the SEC many years is going to win you the regular season title, and it's going to get you a national seed. So, of course, if you're a national seed, you host a regional, you host a super regional, and then it's just a matter of winning a home series to get to Omaha. And if you can do that, then you get in that tournament up in Omaha and see what happens. So I understand the question about Gilbert, especially because last night was a really bad look. But even still, man, there were spots where, like the first 3 hits he gave up, the single, none of them were hard hit. I mean, you were talking about like bouncers through the infield. It's one thing if they're banging the ball off the wall or he's giving up 400-foot homers, but that wasn't what was happening last night. And sometimes you just have bad baseball luck or fortune. I'm not saying that it was entirely that, but some nights it is that, and I think there wasn't an element of that anyway. So I keep it exactly as it is. And the flip side of that too is, I'm gonna pull this up real quick. The reason today is very significant is because next week, as we've talked about, you host Tennessee. I didn't check Tennessee's score last night, but let's see, Tennessee. Oh, they were postponed. Okay, Tennessee is hosting Florida. They're postponed. So my guess is Tennessee's going to get swept this weekend. But Tennessee's sitting there at 4-5, and 4-5 in the conference. So let's assume after this weekend, Florida sweeps and Tennessee's at 4-8 in the conference. Okay, so you have a great chance in your building next week, at the box against Tennessee, who's not very good, to really gain some ground in the SEC. So I don't know that you want to go and do anything drastic at this point, especially considering, man, Ole Miss is at 6-3, Arkansas is at 6-4, LSU's at 6-5. So the 2 teams ahead of you, and obviously there was weather last night. The Ole Miss Mississippi State series got postponed last night as well. So, I like where LSU is because you have Florida and Georgia, who right now are outpacing everybody. You've got Mississippi State, who's terrible at the bottom, and then this gigantic jumble in the middle. And LSU, among that jumble, is kind of at the top of it. And you've got a great chance next week to develop even more separation. So I like where they are. I mean, I know it's a team that has some figuring itself out to do and some growing to do, but you can't forget as well that you very well could get Josh Smith back next week. So you have your starting shortstop and leadoff hitter back next week against Tennessee. And shortly thereafter, you're going to get Brant Broussard back, who'll be your 2-hole hitter and your second baseman. Or you can put him down in the 9-hole or the 8-hole and get a big bat down at the bottom of the lineup. My point is, just stay the course, stay steady here, and you're going to get better. I mean, it's like when Smith and Broussard comes back, that's almost like free agency. It's like you get to add great players late in the season. Not everybody gets to do that. So meanwhile, all these other guys keep getting experience. So disappointing loss last night, but big picture, I like where LSU is. Let's see what happens today. If Mikhail Hilliard can go out and outduel Kilkenny from Texas A&M, who's got the second best ERA in the SEC, you're gonna leave College Station with a series win that before the season, if you're going quite honestly and just scribbling W's and L's, a series in College Station isn't one that you thought LSU was going to win. But they got a great chance to do it today because of how good Hess was on Friday. So you flush this one, you come back tomorrow, or you come back today and see if they can get the win in Game 3. So we'll see how it all plays out. We'll certainly have a morning scone on Sunday recapping the series. We'll hope to see you then. In the meantime, y'all have a great Saturday. Enjoy the rainy Saturday. Like, comment, share, follow this page or subscribe to this page if you would, and tell a friend. Appreciate it as always. We'll see y'all next time.